Welcome back to another video, and today I'll be looking at whether we should have Erling Haaland in our drafts. I'll be looking at things such as squad structure and price points, but also, and more importantly, Guardiola's new iterations, the setup for this specific year, and how he's essentially going to perform in the Manchester City side with the current conditions that we've got available to us. In the introduction to yesterday's video about the premium defenders, I spoke about how I had to tweak the slides given a change in my own perspective, given a change in the information that we've had. And I had to do that for this video. Beforehand, it was quite one-sided, but it no longer is. And a few new variables have probably weakened Haaland's claim, and we'll get into those and essentially why that is. As we approach 2,000 subscribers, I kindly suggest that you subscribe should you enjoy the content and like the video if you do. Without anything else needing to be said, let's get into the video. Firstly and foremost, these graphics are from a channel called Football Made Simple, and I would definitely recommend that you check them out. I'm very appreciative that they made them so that I could use them in my video. Now, we're going to go a little bit slower than usual, just so I don't get lost in my own, thought process. Okay, so one thing of note last year is that Haaland did not have the same service level that he did in his first season in the Premier League. The first question we must ask ourselves is why. Now, for me, the main reason is the lack of De Bruyne and the increased sense of responsibility given to Phil Foden in the midfield. Now, why is this? And look, Phil Foden won Premier League Player of the Season, and in his own right, he very much deserved that. But why is that a bad thing for Erling Haaland? Well, you see, Foden is more of a carrier, and his ball striking from, let's say, mid-range is fantastic. Thus, he doesn't need to be as high volume of a passer to Haaland because he can essentially score from that type of range. If you actually look at his chart of where his goals came from, a lot of them come from in and around the box, and they are scored because of his elite level of ball striking, right? Also, he's very good on transition. So those are a couple of things. And when you're on transition, it can be harder to release a pass for anyone that's played football, right? If you make a surging run through midfield, you're a bit more tired, and it's just harder to go and then look for the pass, especially in terms of balance as well. Like, it's very difficult to stay on balance and put a perfect pass through to your striker, whereas it's probably easier to take things in your stride and shoot. So with all those variables in mind, it certainly takes away from Haaland just because he gets the ball less. Next thing is that there was far less Jack Grealish last year compared to when they won the league the year before. And Grealish is very much the opposite of Foden. The output is significantly decreased, but he constantly looks to find Haaland, whether it be through small combinations and then he flashes it across the box, or just generally just normal crosses into the box, right? Or even combining with Haaland himself when he comes inside. So that's another thing. And the last thing is, not only did you have a carrier in the middle, but you didn't have a passer in De Bruyne, and that too, you're not taking away just any normal passer, right? You are taking away arguably the greatest passer this league has ever seen, and arguably the greatest number 10 this league has ever seen. You're taking away Kevin De Bruyne. So all of those things in mind, he definitely saw less service, thus score less goals. Obviously, he was injured as well, but the main thing was that he had less chances. Okay, so we need to project what's going to happen this year. And this is purely my perspective on things. I think a lot of people will have different perspectives, but this is purely my perspective. I think Guardiola will iterate again. And the reason is, they were okay, City, last year for their own standards, but they could have been a lot better. There were times throughout the season, especially when Rodri missed games, where they were just not up to par. And forget even the chances they conceded on transition, but also the fact that they just weren't creating that much, okay? So that's why I think there'll be an iteration, essentially to take them to the next level. They haven't had the same level of recruitment as, let's say, someone like an Arsenal have so far. Obviously, they made a huge marquee signing today in Caliafori. United have strengthened, Chelsea have strengthened. And whilst I don't think they'll be particularly concerned about those two clubs challenging for the league, they will be about Arsenal. And just in general, Pep is a perfectionist, right? He will most certainly want to close the gap between him and Arsenal, maybe, if he views Arsenal as potentially a better side now. But at a bare minimum, just extend it between himself and everyone else. Okay. So with that in mind, what's he going to do? Well, you can see the first image, and this is kind of what I was talking about earlier, where number 47 is Phil Foden. And you see how high and wide Kyle Walker is. Now, this caused them problems, right? Yes, it allowed Foden to come inside, but look how susceptible that team is to transition. Yeah, Walker's super quick and has brilliant recovery plays. This type of game model is not sustainable over the long term, especially when you're coming up in the Premier League and you have plenty of sides who are willing to transition and plenty of sides who now have the athlete and the quality in the sides to do that. Whereas the image on the bottom is actually from the last day of the season. And then now you have Foden coming wide right, but you have him interchanging with De Bruyne more. you have Doku on the left, and you have Guardiola as number 24, who is up and down that flank and definitely saw himself get into more advanced positions. What I think he's going to do this year is, even if he goes with the same structure, right, Foden's going to stay a little bit more on the right. Now, I don't think he's best pleased about playing De Bruyne and Foden in the middle together. He's discussed this previously, how he doesn't really like it. And I think his hand was a little bit forced last year, given their drop off, just to essentially put them into midfield, give them the responsibility, and then take things from there. However, let's say there's a continuation on that trend. What I think will happen is Guardiola won't play the same role as last year. I don't think he's going to be as attacking to solve their attacking deficiencies, because I don't think they'll be as present this year. Why? Well, we spoke about how they struggle to create chances, right? But in open games, that's never going to be an issue, right? When you have Foden, De Bruyne, and Haaland, that is never going to be an issue in open game. Not to mention Doku on the left. But what's going to change this year? And I think that might be Savinho on the right. He is one that is reportedly very good at being able to break down low blocks. I say reportedly because I don't want to lie to you. I have never watched the guy play football. However, my reference is an account called No New Thing on Twitter. Someone I really trust in terms of his footballing perspective. He's done tremendously well in a number of predictions. So I'm taking that for, as truth and at face value, right? So if they have recruited a winger who's going to help them break down low blocks, again, at the end of the day, when you're breaking down low blocks, the style of goal you're going to score is very different. It's not going to be a Salah penetrating the half space, comes inside, shoots, scores. It's going to be, okay, pass, break him down. Someone beats their man one-on-one, or maybe even two-on-one, and eventually it has to find its way to the center just because the box is so crowded. And obviously Haaland is so dominant in those areas. So that's one really, really good thing, I think. Now, last year, it wasn't so much just that Foden was playing so well, but he also got given a lot of responsibility on the pitch. You see how controlling Pep is, right? For example, the wingers don't leave the touchline. They don't have that much freedom. Whereas Pep said to Foden, okay, you know what? You go in the middle, and to a greater extent than previous times, do what you want and, solve it, figure it out. This year, I think he'll be slightly different in the sense that probably won't have the same level of responsibility, assuming you have a fit De Bruyne. Now, he got knocked out in the round of 16, right? So he's had a significant more amount of time off than Foden. Thus, I think his reintegration will be slightly better. Obviously, there's an age difference, but still, he should be relatively fit come game week 3 or 4. Thus, with him in the middle and having almost his share of responsibility back, I think that bodes very well for Haaland. All you have to do is look at any statistic that when these two play together and De Bruyne's got a bit more of a free role, these two do fantastically well together. And at the end of the day, it is Haaland who's usually on the end of the goals. But in the introduction to this video, I said that it's not as one-sided as I thought it was initially. And had it been, my analysis would have stopped there. But Pep spoke about how the players who had gone to the Euros and reached the knockout stage, not only would they not be returning for the usual preseason, but not even the Community Shield. Thus, in their reintegration for Game Week 1 and 2, their expected minutes aren't looking great, nor is their level of fitness. Thus, I think City could potentially start a little bit slow, given it's going to be a bit of a weaker side. Now, they've got Chelsea away in the first game, which there's a lot of things to go into in that fixture, but it's not the easiest game in the world, right? So with that in mind, and even for that Ipswich at home, maybe, both Foden and De Bruyne don't play, and even if they do, they won't be up to match speed yet. Will City be a little sluggish? Will Haaland, for at least the first few games, see issues behind him, which result in a lack of chances? Yeah, maybe. Now, Oscar Bob's look pretty good on the right. That could be certainly a solve for Guardiola, but it's not set in stone, and he's not as established as the likes of Foden and De Bruyne. So for the first 2-3 games, which is what we're really looking at here, I wouldn't be surprised to see Haaland maybe not hit the level or not at least receive the amount of chances that he will from 3 and 4 onwards. And that's definitely something to take note of, because if you are going to gamble against Haaland, it is to be done pretty early, because if you look at his fixture on around game 7 or 8, it gets pretty good. So if you're going to gamble, I'd say do it now and use that as your reasoning. Use the fact that his creativity issues behind him may not be solved as a result of the Euros. That probably bolsters Guardiola's claim, because I think the reason he made the role in the first place was to solve that deficiency it had in terms of creativity. And if he's taking away Foden and De Bruyne, his two best creatives in the middle, he may lean to Guardiola again to just kind of, restore the balance across the sides. And the other thing is, which is good for Haaland, is the fact that he's finally had some rest and recovery time. Obviously, we know he's had a variety of injuries, but now, given he's had so much time off, especially when everyone's been away playing football, it's almost a double-edged sword in his favour. Thus, I think, expected minutes-wise, which is a huge thing nowadays, and something that the analytics community have understood really well and profited off. it will bode very well for him. So that's something I quite like. Right, enough of the footballing analysis. Now let's look at some more actual FPL in terms of squad structuring, price points, etc. Okay. So again, there are a few things to digest here. If you are not to go for Haaland, because you probably sense that throughout this video, I'm still pretty bullish on him. If you're not to go for him, then where do you go? Let's just assume Isak's a lock, right? Because he will be in a lot of sides, and rightfully so. You go to Ollie Watkins. Well, West Ham away isn't the easiest fixture under a new manager, especially. And you've got Arsenal at home. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if Aston Villa don't score in that game. I think Arsenal defensively are going to be rock solid this year. If they sign Mourinho and solve all of their left centre mid issues, oh my God, are they going to be a difficult side to score against? To score, you'll have to do either something brilliant or they'll have to make a mistake. Both of the two things are, statistically speaking, very unlikely to happen. I'm not super bullish on Watkins for the first two. Sure, you get 6 million extra, but where do you reinvest it to get back the points on Haaland? What happens if he scores a brace against Ipswich? 26 points, you're behind the field. Who are you going to captain game week 2? And like, even if you do captain someone, and let's say it goes well, you've got a bit lucky because in terms of the numbers, the probabilities, the statistical likelihoods, there's no one even close to outscoring Haaland in game week 2. Game week 1's its own conundrum, right? You can obviously captain Salah, and you can have Haaland and Salah drafts, as I'm going to show you. But I think them two coexisting is very risky. It locks a lot of funds in two players, and realistically, you won't be able to ship them off in game week 2. You're not going to take a hit, right? You're not going to sell Salah to go to, I don't know, let's say an Eze, and then upgrade Nkunku to Saka. Like, you're just not going to do that because it requires a hit. And what was the point of having Salah for only 1 week? And plus, in game week 2, he's got game at Anfield. So if you do go for that strategy, it's very risky because you're essentially closing yourself off to a lot of options. And thus, I think you probably have to pick one. And obviously, if Salah's role changes in this Liverpool side, fair enough. But I just can't see him hauling as regularly as he used to. Whereas I can with Haaland, even with the creative issues we discussed. Maybe not so much against Chelsea, but against Ipswich, yeah, for sure. Plus, there'll be a week after the Chelsea game, so De Bruyne and Foden will definitely have had some more time. But the side will be at a greater strength, right? And that's the thing for me. I just don't know where you're going to get the points back. Sure, you'll have more money and you can invest it in better players. But the 6.5s are so good. Kudus, Bailey, Nkunku, Gibbs-White, right? At 7, you have Eze. At 7.5, you have Gordon. So you have so many players that can go toe-to-toe with arguably the premiums, but also even the guys are like 8, 8.5. And thus, I just don't think it's worth losing him because the alternatives, the more expensive alternatives, I just don't think they can cover him. Not when you have so many good, cheap options. That's the key here. You have so many good, cheap options that it facilitates Haaland pretty well, I would say, even at 15. Right now, I'm about to show you 3 different drafts, all of which include Haaland. All of them I like. And if you'd like to see the ratings for your draft, if you'd like to see the ratings of these drafts, then all you need to do is click the link in the description. And as my co-star here is showing off, you'll be taken to the My Team AI tool. And it is fantastic. It does a lot of the work for you. It'll give you so many recommendations. And in terms of signing up, again, a very general statement, which I've made before. But in terms of value for money, absolutely brilliant, in my opinion. I mean, you get so much. You get team reveals from some of the best players ever, like Ben Crellin, Abdul, who's FPL Salah. You get the AI tool, of course. You get customized statistics tables to sort however you like. And you get a whole host of other things and a very cool new feature that's coming up. So definitely consider it and at least check out the AI tool. It's free to use for the first time and the link's in the description. Draft 1 is what we'll set up in a 3-5-2 with 1 premium defender and Haaland and Salah together. Now, there are a few things. Well, firstly, the goalkeeper is Miguel, and he's going to be an ever-present throughout these 3 drafts because for me, he is now my number 1. After I saw the high line that Chelsea were very stubbornly going to use against Celtic, I know Celtic were better physically because they're closer to their season starting, but still, that's going to be the high line in this day and age against these type of Premier League sides. I'll take Miguel and his better fixtures, so he's going to be an ever-present. Here, what we have is, I'm banking on the fact that in Gvardiol, he will play for the first game or 2 games. He'll play the same role he did last year. And thus, he'll definitely have an opportunity to get attacking returns. And then I've of course, got Haaland and Salah here. And again, the way I facilitate that is through the cheaper mids. I've got 2 times 6.5s, both of which are, I would say, very secure picks. You know, both going to probably play through the middle. Gibbs White probably more advanced as a 10, whereas Nkunku would be a little bit more of an 8. But, you know, in terms of pressing, they'll probably both be up top in a 4-4-2. But Eze, so many good things to say about him and have been said about him that I don't need to go over him. Then you've obviously got the Newcastle stack, the triple up there to really attack those first few fixtures. And of course, you've got Konsa, Robinson, and Burn for the whole rotation in the defense, playing 2 every week. And it works very nicely up until about game week 6. So it's a strong side, but it does lack a little bit of flexibility. And it's probably my least favorite for the fact that it has Salah. And I'm currently not leaning that way. The thing is here, again, you're a little bit stuck in game week 2 if, let's say, any of the premiums who aren't Salah pop off, and the 8 million range in terms of Odegaard and Bruno, who you could very well want by game week 2. If Bruno potentially has a role which is somewhat similar to when he first came into the league, given Man United have made so many signings and hopefully they improve for their sake, well, he could be unreal value at 8.5 million. I mean, minutes guaranteed, penalties, set pieces, high volume of actions if he is to play that old role in the final third. Brilliant. So you're blocking yourself off from all of those players. So if you're going to do this, I would say you should be very, very confident in Mohamed Salah. The second draft I prefer more. Liverpool don't play too many elite attacks in the first few weeks. Thus having Trent in terms of the clean sheet potential, which I think has gone up in the slot system as opposed to the flop system for a variety of reasons, which we'll probably get into in a later video. Well, I think that's probably, a fairly safe bet, especially with how much attacking upside he has. I really like Son for that first fixture. I mean, even if he plays at left wing, he has a fantastic record against Leicester. And Spurs are only going to play in one way. That's the same way as last year, where they're going to be looking to score goals. It's a very positive philosophy behind the style of football and the system. So I'm quite comfortable having him for game week 1. And even in game week 2, sure, I don't need to sell him. I can move to like a De Bruyne and again optimize my City stack here, which is what I really like. That Ipswich fixture game week 2, I can easily go Son to De Bruyne, easily go Son to Foden, and really stack on that team and essentially attack that fixture. So I've got that option. Say Son sets the world alight in game week 1, I can stick with him and have him at home against Everton in game week 2. I also have Szoboszlai here, who's likely to play in that 10 role, which I've spoken about previously in some of my other videos. Can he cover Salah? Well, yeah. If he's going to play in that role next to the striker, off the striker, then yeah, he genuinely could cover Salah, and that too at 6 million less. And naturally, we've got the obvious candidates we've had from the last team. So this is probably a much more preferable draft to the last one because it's easy for me to, get in and out of price points. So I like this one a lot more. Right, now this third draft, you probably wouldn't have seen too much in terms of the squad structure and the combination of players. I spoke about De Bruyne a lot, and I spoke about how he potentially could miss game week 1, right? This is very much a draft just in case you really wanted to stack City and just in case he's back for game week 1 and Pep doesn't mind reintegrating him given his trading so well. But even if not, the whole point of this was to show you a double premium midfield draft with a very heavy defensive stack. Okay, so De Bruyne could easily be Eze here. So De Bruyne could easily be Saka here. You can just downgrade Eze by 0.5 to a 6.5 and you'd have that. Bruno and Haaland is an interesting combination. I mean, both of them give you 90 minutes probably. Both of them give you penalties. Both of them give you fixtures. Naturally, different players, different positions, etc., etc. But at 8.5, I think Bruno is definitely someone that you could consider as almost a half premium in terms of facilitating a really strong midfield within a Haaland draft. The other thing is this has got such a robust defense. You'll never pretty much have to sell Walker or Gvardiol, whichever one you choose, depending on the price points of the other players you'd like. That brings us to the end of this video. These type of videos I really enjoy. I get to essentially freestyle and just put my own spin on things and share my theories with you, and hopefully that helped. With regards to these type of videos and just the content in general, naturally, we're still in an early stage of preseason, right? We've got a lot of football to come. And given that, with the videos down the line, I'll be able to put more detail. Don't worry, it is going to get better. Plus, I'm just starting YouTube, so similar with the threads, they will get better and better and better. That I promise. If you did enjoy it, please consider liking the video and subscribing as we approach 2,000 subscribers mark. That would be great to hit. Thank you very much for your time.